Alright, hello everyone, my name is Disc, and in this video we have a level 11 Grim Batol, and for the week's affix we are Voidbound. So if you're new to my channel, thank you for tuning in. I'm also available on medify.gg for private lessons. If you're interested in any of my UI elements, please consider joining the channel as a member, I'd really appreciate it. But this was an excellent queue overall, it was a total pug. But we were in Discord coordinating together and it went really well. I'm so happy I have it recorded. I think it was the most fun I've had in WoW in a while. But it was not perfect, so stay tuned for boss number 2. We had an accidental pull, but I think it's a really good example of how to pick up a recovery, which is a whole separate subject on its own, which we'll cover when we get there. But here's a splash of the talents. I'm not really going to go into it. Please ask if you have any questions. I'm still running Depth of Shadows and Darkening Horizon. It feels really good. I'm having a lot of fun doing it. But I've seen a lot of people complain that Discipline doesn't, they're struggling as a healer with Discipline at the moment. And if I were to sum up Discipline healing into kind of just one sentence, it's all about just kind of getting your rift out before incoming damage for full coverage, casting a Radiance after your rift, and that's about it. Everyone will be covered through the collapse, which is huge. And then another thing I'm noticing is it's obviously all about timing, and but it's just kind of like a back and forth where we have a full rotation. I might call that like a Mindbender plus a rift, or we have a half rotation, which is just the rift. And it's kind of a cycle for almost every boss where you just go back and forth between them. And what that means is on average, you're going to be getting twice as many rifts. And here is a quick splash of the damage, kind of showing what I was just talking about. 325,000 damage per second is a pretty good number. I'm trying to aim for over 300 per key. I think it's a pretty good benchmark. But looking at the spread, we see Entropic Rift on top. That is because we're getting twice as many. If you don't see your Mindbender in a strong second, that's going to point to missing Torments. And then we have Shadow or Death in a really thick third place. And this is because of our executes getting amplified damage on shields, and that's what the affix is. So whenever we see the affix pop up, we're heavily incentivized as Discipline to help out. We do extra damage on shields, which as a Disc Priest, that yields extra healing as well. And it's quite a lot of healing, to be totally frank, so you really want to help out with those. And Shadow Word Death, the shields, whenever you see the affix pop up, then Purge the Wicked right there. That is a mini game in its own. We really want to be, we're heavily incentivized as a Disc Priest to switch our targets. So we always want to be seeking dots for our penance. We always want to be seeking execute ranges for Shadow Word Death. And then we also need a way to seamlessly fall back to our Schism target. And I do that with focus macros, which if anyone has questions, please ask. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and clip over to the key. All right, here we go. Again, a total pug, but we're in Discord together. This was a really smooth key. Couple exceptions from the DPS dying to ground damage, but happens to the best of us, and excellent plays from the tank. So pay attention to how he does it. And rip all of our metas.
You learn the true lesson of the void.
So we have the targeted cast weak aura in this pull showing where the single target dot goes from the dragon, so we're watching for that. Also on the dragon's nameplate, we're tracking one spell, that's the knockback. And I'm selected. A little bit late on that PI, but it's okay. So here goes the half rotation. Opened with Mindbender, and now it's just the Rift while the Mindbender is resetting. See some executes. Got him. Grip for the win. So I think you can live those hits, but it is definitely the play to LOS them. Food for thought, your penance will still channel from behind a wall, so you can cast it in front and then LOS. Noticing now we have the introduction of Fears. Fear is really pro in this dungeon. Aqua Fears on the nameplate are for us. My Fear icon will glow with a fixed bar right below it as well, so watch for that. There's an affix. Waiting for Shadow of Death. Okay. And here goes a half rotation, just a rift, making sure I'm getting 2 penance into the rift. I also play Rhapsody and Star, so trying to play those as much as possible. Rhapsody is a great spell for opener before a Mindbender window. It'll recharge by the time the Mindbender's back. I've still not played Fear. I think I get a Fear this next pull, kind of watch for that. But as an opener, pretty standard. I'm dotting all but 2. Penance spreads my final 2. I love keeping Renews on a tank. Radiance for the proc. Mindbender Death. Rift Penance. Recently I've been pulling my Death in front of my Rift. Working out pretty good. And here, as my window is expiring, I work in a Pain Sup. Really good play to kind of stagger those at the end of your CD window, depending. And that little graphic around my tune, I have a haste proc coming from Trinket and Weapon. I have it loaded into that graphic so I can kind of see when I'm getting haste procs. The idea is if I see that come up, I might just spam Smite trying to get CDR. Okay, so something I learned with this, maybe I'm late to the party, but you can cast number 1 and 2 in the same global. Well, there is no global, and they don't share a cooldown, so you can cast 1 and 2 at the same time. That's what I was doing there, getting a couple more hits that way. Am I late to the party on that one? Does everyone do that? Okay, let's see. Going for the big guys only. Getting as many 2s as I can. Really spamming. And then, so imagine in between combat anywhere, a really good idea is to Radiance. First thing I do. So the idea there is I'm going to go ahead and let my mana regen and go ahead and let the cooldown of Radiance refresh. The proc holds for 30 seconds. Dot the dragon. And here's the most fun rotation. Oh, I missed it. Cringe. Grip of Life. You're welcome, Shaman. Okay, not the best rotation, but it was a weak pull. But putting Shadow or Death early is a really good idea for Depth of Shadows. So I'll cast the Mindbender, get both my deaths, then Rift and Penance. And yes, if anyone's wondering, I did just accidentally pull that. And going into this pull, I only have my Rift. So here goes the Rift, but I catch some extra executes on the front, getting some extra free torments. And there was my Fear on the Aqua Bar. The best thing you can do if you accidentally pull something is at least not let them cast. But the Rift really does all we need, and especially taking Extended Rift, really all you have to do, simply put, is cast a Radiance after the Rift. Make sure you're casting your Radiance on the most centralized person in your cluster, and then the Rift will cover everyone. It's literally huge. So extra executes, drop my Rhapsody. Rhapsody is a great spell to press while moving, instant cast. And food for thought on that, I was having a lesson over the weekend. When it comes to casting and moving, there's a handful of spells that you can cast while moving. You really want those on a separate hand than your movement hand, so they can both happen at the same time. So if you primarily move with WASD, you don't want movement spells coming from your left hand too. So try putting your combat spells right hand, food for thought. So not too much with this boss. It is a back and forth with a Mindbender Rift, then just a Rift. Make sure we cast a Radiance after, noticing how I'm cycling my personals. That was just a fade round. And so I open with a full rotation, and it covers all the way through the second hit, it looks like. And after the collapse, we are full. Also noticing we have tank hits here. The white dotted lines on the tank is from the targeted cast weak aura. Barrier for this round. So one attack hits all 5, the other attack hits only 3. I would use the barrier on the all 5 one where you don't have to separate. Something like Rapture on this. Favoring Rapture on myself because I'm atoned. And the Shaman, because he's atoned, it'll hit 20% harder. I atoned the DK before that shield. And on this one, it was a precast, really good skill to develop. Precaster Radiance into a full rotation. Quick recovery of health is the name of the game. Looked at my Radiance after the Rift. Full recovery. So this one will be a half rotation, just the Rift. Getting some naturally long atonements out first. Rift after the damage. And Radiance after the Rift. Doing my best to kind of condense those. I'm sure I laid some of them bad, but yeah, you want to not eat up as much of the ground room as possible. Okay, so back to a full rotation. And this is the most fun rotation for Discipline right now. Mindbender, Death, Death. Rift, Penance. It's about 10 torments. And on the tail end of the window, I go for Death, Death, Penance. And that's for about 10 additional free torments. Yeah, and watch that one back if you want to see how that worked out. But with 2 extra Mindbenders, 3 total. A lot of torments. People are saying that's not the play. I like it. Okay, so going into this room, start clenching because this is where things go wrong. Not at first. And with a Paints Up on cooldown, my plan here is to reach for Rapture first, kind of just to help its cooldown along. Radiance into Rapture for the Mastery, trying to time our heals with the attack on Nameplate, and now we are fully ramped. And after the Rapturing, we're all covered for the next hit, where now I place my Mindbender and Rift. Working a Radiance after the hit. Instant execute there, but that's okay. And I think I close this guy out with just a Rift. Let's see if I cast it. No, I'm holding. Fine, fine. Radiance after the hit. And noticing on his nameplate, I am tracking the estimated timer of that attack. Really, really important as a Discipline Priest. Let's see, I think I go Mindbender, Death, Death. Rift, Penance. Working a Radiance. I did get 1 blast first. Switch my target to preserve my dot. Drop my Rhapsody after my window ended, and this is where it goes wrong. We accidentally pulled boss with big mobs still up, so kind of as a Hail Mary, I drop spells, Barrier for the team, Personal, Shield Wall, Desperate Prayer. Mind soothing those guys just to try and help. And here goes Rapture. Paints Up myself really just to try and get through this. The boss isn't that complicated. It's a pretty simple back and forth rotation. I have Mindbender and Rift. The ad is down, so we're in a good spot here. But here come these. So in hindsight, if I had Paints Up myself immediately with that remaining Paints Up, it could have played different. But this boss doesn't require as many Paints Ups on myself. It is a really simple back and forth rotation, but things were getting out of hand. So I send my full rotation here, Mindbender and Rift, just to really try and help the transition here. PI's up, let's get that thing out. Really good practice to try and preserve ground space by not doing what the Mage just did. And right here's a half rotation with just the Rift. And quickly glance at my Rapture cooldown. It has 10 seconds left. We're about to have incoming attacks, and I don't use Rapture. So I think in hindsight, if I had immediately reached for Rapture now, things might have played out differently, but I go for just a Rift window, and I died. But in my defense, my health potion was used, my personals was down, and it was just kind of hard coming back from that accidental pull, but from here on out we get it. Immediately go into a Rapture here just to ease. Also a rift for group wide. Working my radiance after the rift. And after that collapse, we've, for the most part, recovered. But when it comes to dying, you'll see it over and over, and it's kind of just the sign of inexperience. But there is a technique to rezzing as well. I first check where my spawn point is on the ground. There's a graphic. And then within a split second, I'm planning what my first move is. What am I going to cast? And that right there... I thought the boss was going to die, in all honesty. I could have laid a barrier and that would have helped. Thankfully, we got through it with a defensive penance into myself. You might have to rewatch that, but knowing when to defensive penance is a really good thing. And right here, instead of holding combat with this guy when I'm fully drained of mana, Shadow Meld Drink is a really nice macro. And using this time right now for regening is the right call. So I don't have Mindbender, I just have Rift. I dot one, let my penance spread the other 2 dots. Worked in at Radiance for the proc. Focus target on the dark red, watching for his attack incoming. Going into a Rapture because I'm trying to help the cooldown of my pain sap. Here's PI. Here goes my turn. Mindbender Death, Rift Penance. Now that my death is out of my Rift window, I focus more blasts. Work in a delayed Radiance before the collapse, after the incoming damage. And the collapse covered us all. Waiting for some executes here. So Death, Death, Rift. Then Penance is a really nice rotation. You'll get free Torments if you proc any of those free Mindbenders. And I did. So if you play Depth of Shadows, Death is priority over Penance. If you play Void Wraith, I think it can be reversed. Penance first. And then this is my favorite new UI element. If you notice the big one that's walking away, he had a tick mark in the middle of his health. That is indicating a threshold-based mechanic. So in Grim Batol, I'll choose the Mage. In Grim Batol, those mechanics just happen at 50. It's not too hard to remember or visualize. But picture things like Miss or Dawnbreaker. Seeing those thresholds is really important as a healer, and have kind of been a game changer. I will plug the author of that weak aura. He actually took that request to help me out, and I kind of worked with him a little bit to problem solve it. But great weak aura, love it. Okay, so here we have a mechanic happening at 50%, marked on his nameplate. I'm also tracking the AoE spell, 4 seconds away. Mindbender is out before the damage. Rift is out. I delay my Radiance. And everyone's covered through the Rift. Through the collapse, I mean. And here we're approaching 50 when he blows up. I believe I go into a barrier. Death, Death, Penance. And I think I catch my collapse here too. Yep. Cancel Aura, Entropic Rift. You never really want your Rift to end after an attack. Or after a pull ends. What am I saying? Okay, so focusing for the Darkest Red, I have my Rift and Mindbender. Some natural long atonements plus a shield. Proccing my Words of the Pious. Mindbender Death, Rift Penance. I'm not really attacking the affix until I have my deaths. And that's what I did there. I really think that's the play as the healer. You can give it deaths without any sort of recoil. But if I'm not hitting my Void Blast into my Schism, I can't do my job as well as a healer. I don't know. Okay, so here we have another Lava Bender, watching for that 50% mark. I do go ahead and open with... So this one I think is a more standard play. I'm not using Barrier here, so I open with just a half rotation, just the Rift, worked in a Radiance after the Rift, and we're all covered through that attack. Some big credit to our Shaman and Mage. They are excellent with these decurses. Noticing the Absorb showing up as a pink overlay on my bars. But that Rapture there was preemptive for the 50% mark. The Body and Soul seemed to also come in handy for my sidestepping. And that was another defensive Dark Reprimand fully into myself just to make sure I live. Too many attacks were happening. I think a kick got through. I was a little bit lower. The rest of the party did not need help. So favoring it into myself instead of atonement was the right call. Don't touch dragons. Dragon on left. And this is going to be a delayed chain. We're kind of just waiting for some separation. But I open with one dot. Open with a penance to spread those dots. Targeting the big one. Let's go for a full rotation. Mindbender, Death, Rift, Penance. Working a Radiance after this attack, after the Rift. Picked up 2 Executes. We're approaching 50. Let's see, what do I do? Go into a Rapture to help my Pain Sup cooldown. Rapture plus Rift is a great play. A lot of times you can send the Rift out, have it do its job. Even cast a couple of Void Blasts and work in your Raptures kind of on the people that are sinking lowest. Yeah, so that frontal, it is kind of quick, but we've had a couple deaths to that now. Not the biggest loss. Thankfully, we're doing well in this key, but the death itself is 15 seconds. The cast time of res is 10. So, losing time when you die. Mind Soothe to sneak by. Dot 2, go straight into my window. Group of 4. Noticing my audible cues are limited here with bigwigs, only the frontals. And always reach for a utility play after your window. Your bomb. And at this point, really all I'm thinking is CDR. So going into this next group, I'm just pressing my CDR spells to get my Mindbender back. You never really want to go into a pull without Mindbender, and you shouldn't have to. So prio at the end of a pull is favor CDR spells. That's all you gotta do. So for these guys, I'm off skull on purpose because I'm trying to get value out of my Rift, but I'm opening with a half rotation here, holding the Mindbender for the latter half of this pull. Barrier, grip the Mage in, my signature. Got some executes, and I messed up my rotation there. If anyone sees what happened, you never want to cast Penance before Rift, and that's what happened there. I think I just messed up, but I dropped this huge Dark Reprimand Harsh Discipline proc before the Rift, and things got kind of off sequence, but thankfully we had executes, recovered the health. And with this guy, it's just a half rotation. I'm not going to send the Mindbender, just the Rift, and I delay it a little bit so it recovers after these curses. And a lot of times there's a split second before the end of a collapse where you can give someone a single atonement and they'll catch the heal of the collapse. That's what I did there. It's really useful play. Okay, and then this, it's really just a back and forth rotation. We start with a full Mindbender plus Rift. The timers with bigwigs are a little inaccurate, so you kind of just have to feel it out and delay a little bit. We're only tracking this Twilight Buffet. And the idea is we want our opener done, plus a Radiance before we're knocked away. So Mindbender Death, Rift Penance, plus a radiance. And we want that all to happen before we are hit. And this one's perfect. So we're punted, immediately followed by the collapse. And that one was almost a miss. But let's pay attention to the next one. So I delay slightly. I'm anticipating the curses and the heal absorbs. My rift is out. Put in my radiance in my rift. And the collapse recovers. So going into this next Twilight Buffet, my Mindbender and Rift are out. I cast my Radiance during the boss's cast, and we are all covered through the collapse. And I start to get a little off on this next one. These attacks are very quick in succession, so I opt to just go for a Rapture round and kind of let my Mindbender reset. I still go for my half rotation here to help with the curses. But then I go into Rapture and I'm just kind of like trying to get back on sequence here. And food for thought with Rapture, it's always better on an Atonement. That's for Mastery. A really nice rotation for Rapture is a Radiance into Rapture. Get a proc, get Atonements out. Shields will be buffed by Mastery. Okay, so here's our half rotation, just the Rift. Worked in my Radiance. Curses, collapse. So let's see if I get this next rotation better. And I think I include Barrier here for comfort. Yep. Here goes my opener, Mindbender Death, Rift Penance. So slightly better of a rotation. I missed the Radiance element, which is why we're not atoned. But being the end of the fight, I didn't even reach for a Reatonement spell. I just went for the damage. We didn't need the healing. But maybe not the best idea to play Mindbender there because he's not ready yet, 20 seconds away. I think my first rotation there, the first Twilight Buffet, was the best example, so revisit that one. And then right here, I would say this was a slight mistake. The best you can do at the opener of a pull is Mindbender and Rift. My Mindbender wasn't ready, but only by a couple of seconds, and I dropped my Rift on its own. The better play would be just to give a couple of seconds to farm the Mindbender back and cast them both together. So here I finally get my full rotation with both cooldowns, but watch what happens when the pull ends. Pull is ending and Mindbender is at 30 seconds away. That's why we want him at the front of a pull. I really would rather be going into this pull with the Mindbender. Targeted cast and party going on the Death Knight. LOSing these attacks. And grip for the win there, using party nameplates to see that that was my DK. Tracking that punt spell on the dragon's nameplate. And here was a Mindbender Death, Rift Penance. Getting all those extra torments from 3 Mindbenders. And one of the nice things about Penance is as long as you cast it in LOS of a mob, you can take it out of LOS, and you can always kind of use that to your advantage. And I was trying to troll there if anyone caught that. I shadow melded that attack, but that doesn't do anything anymore. It just went to someone else, but it actually mitigated the attack since he died. Alright, in these pulls, you just want to get out your DPS spells early, and we're watching in party for the targeted cast Weakar. There it is. For this first one, I didn't need anything additional other than my full rotation window. But I did forget to drop Rhapsody, it looks like. In pulls like that with a lot of mobs, you do want to drop Rhapsody early. Right here, the Mage almost died. I was being a little bit greedy with Shadow Deaths. I should have given him that direct defensive penance sooner. But on this one, Mindbender was not ready. Rift is honestly all we need, so I get it out early, followed by a Penance. Here's another targeted cast on the DK. A defensive Penance, fully recovered. It's honestly the best thing we have in our book. You can give someone a direct defensive Penance plus, cap it with a shield from the Wheel and Woe, and that's about the best single target you can do. Here comes the last one for this guy, the Mage. deaths and a defensive penance. You can always give someone a direct penance and cap it with a shield, like that example. It is a really good single target heal. They get all the power of the penance plus the shield, the Wheelmo shield. Really good single target heal. Star early, Rhapsody early. And I drop a Pain Sup for this single target heal, mainly because I want to hit my damage rotation. And a pretty common play of Rapture now, since it's more comfortable, is you can stagger it in between ticks of a dot. Exactly what I did there. So it's a really good way to mitigate attacks, and if you do it right with enough shields in your bank, you can kind of mitigate full attacks like that. But notice how I was using my grid 2 to kind of help assist that, seeing when those absorb values deplete. And on this boss, just like the others, the thing we have to do on open is send our Mindbender. Even though there's no damage, it is coming. We want a full rotation. Notice how I'm cycling my personal defensives. On pull, Mindbender Death, Rift Penance, drop PI, just use my Fade as my defense. Now I'm going to cycle. Radiance after the Rift. Everyone is fully covered through the collapse. And then here comes the half rotation. Also on this fight we have tank busters, noticing the targeted cast highlighting our tank white. Really good idea to pre-Pain Sup, potentially just a Wheelmo shield. So here's our half rotation with a Radiance mixed in. And we are about to have our tank buster watching for the white dotted line. And a shield. So I think a lot of times a shield's enough. But here comes our next round of damage, so I get my opener out of the way first. Planning my Radiance. Did it early for the coverage, star for the ads. 2 Dark Reprimands into the collapse. And 3 Torments. And we just rinse and repeat. So I get the Rift out early on purpose because we really want to make sure it's just ready on the Void Surge. So I get it out early to help its cooldown. And in this one, only one person was selected. So instead of a Radiance as my Reatonement, I just cast a shield on the Mage who had the attack. And that was a Pain Sup attempt. I think if you were to critique it, I was late. But here is my full rotation round for the Void Surge. I flubbed the rotation a little, but I did atone everyone before the collapse. We had a barrier down standing in the Venn diagram of both of them. And here comes just the Rift window, but we can Death, then Rift. Death is too powerful of an attack to not put on cooldown before the Rift. Paints up myself just for comfort. And I think now I just send. Just trying to polish this guy off. And for that tank buster, I opened with Rapture on the tank, using that as his defense. And here's a Mindbender Death, Rift, immediately collapse for the win. So you don't really want to ever end a Rift that soon, but I was trying to just go for the grab. Sent my Rift and immediately canceled it there just to polish him off. But that was a really fun Grim Batol for me, and I hope to play with these guys more in the future. But it was a total pug, and we just had really good synergy. This key for me was the hardest to complete on a 10. I think I had to do it probably 10 times in a row before I got the completion. So we kind of came into here with not high hopes, but we timed it with over a minute to spare. So in summary, it's kind of like all about timing your windows. You kind of want to cast your windows before damage. That way the collapse happens after the damage. You work in a Radiance within your Rift. Everyone's covered through the collapse. And that's about it. I think Discipline's really fun right now, and it's honestly not as like button bloated as it has been in the past. So I think it's very user-friendly to newcomers. And that's kind of all you really got to know is cast your Rift, cast a Radiance, and that's it. The only game to really practice probably is making sure you're casting Radiance on the correct person. A lot of times you really need your Rift to heal all 5, and you don't want a Radiance to miss pieces of your party, so using party nameplates is something I will preach till the day I die. But thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you liked this video, and until next time, Disc.